the same reality. What I'm concerned about Mike Johnson is there's no way of avoiding what I just described. There's no way of avoiding going to Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats and asking for their votes on some of the things they're going to have to do throughout the year. And what does he do? What do these people do to him at that point? I worry we're going to end up in a situation that Kevin McCarthy found himself in, that doing the job itself is not possible, and he could be facing threats before long as well.
We'll see. Brendan Buck, Julie Sirkin, thank you both. Up next, how far will President-elect Donald Trump go to make sure Mike Johnson is reelected as Speaker? More on what's at stake next.
Diarrhea can have many different causes. Whichever the cause, Kaopectate is your solution. It gives you fast, effective relief of upset stomach and diarrhea. And it doesn't just treat the symptoms, it gets right to the source of diarrhea. Kaopectate relieves diarrhea and upset stomach fast.
Childhood cancer it's a long road. It's hard, but St. Jude has gotten us through it. St. Jude is hope that you have a chance at life. And it goes such a long way for every child diagnosed with cancer because the research is being shared all over the world. It's awesome.
When migraine strikes, do you question the trade-offs of treating? Ubrelvy is another option. It works fast, and most have migraine pain relief within 2 hours. You can treat it anytime, anywhere. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Don't take with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing or face, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur hours to days after use. Common side effects include nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Learn how AbbVie could help you save on Ubrelvy. One of those soccer, swim, and softball after school kind of days, huh? Don't stress. HelloFresh has dinner covered. With tons of delicious recipes you can pull together in no time, no matter what your week looks like. So even on a barely time to eat type of day, you can still get a homemade meal on the table that the whole family will love. HelloFresh, homemade, made easy.
With so many choices on Booking.com, there are so many Tina Feys I could be.
So I hired body doubles to help me out.
Splurgy Tina loves a hotel near Rodeo Drive.
Oh, Tina.
Wild Tina booked a farm stay to ride this horse.
Glenn Close?
With millions of possibilities. You can book whoever you want to be.
That's my line.
Booking.com.
Yeah.
Aveeno introduces new daily moisturizing cream. It's clinically proven to moisturize dry skin for 48 hours and instantly strengthens skin's barrier for softer, smoother skin. Aveeno, the power of oat for sensitive skin.
What drives your business? Numbers, data, sales? Sure, but it's your people who define your business. That's why Paychex just reinvented the way to find and keep the best people. Smart, streamlined HR technology assisted by AI and our team of HR experts. Everything you need to recruit, motivate, and support your employees. Because your people are your business. Start reinventing your business at paychex.com/TV.
We need a small business loan fast.
I got this. Loan Falcon!
There's a better way to get a fast small business loan. Go to OnDeck.com, and if approved, get your funds as soon as the same day. Your loan is on deck.
How'd you do that? Looks complicated.
It's easy. Pick more or less on at least 2 players, enter your lineup, and lock in for the game.
Download the PrizePicks app today. Enter $5 and get $50 instantly with code TV.
I could have told you that. I could have told you that.
Continuing to follow the breaking news on Capitol Hill as the House will be meeting very soon to vote for its next speaker. And Mike Johnson is still facing an uphill battle. He can only afford to lose one GOP vote to maintain the gavel if all Democrats do not vote for him. Today's vote also marks an early test for President-elect Trump and whether his endorsement will be enough to help Johnson win re-election as Speaker. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida. And Gabe, Speaker Johnson, we know, went down to Mar-a-Lago earlier this week to meet with the president-elect. What are you hearing about the impact Trump's support might be having on House Republicans? Has Trump managed to convince those holdouts to vote for Johnson?
Hi there, Anna. Good morning. Well, this will be a massive test of party unity, as you've been discussing. And yes, earlier today, President-elect Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, once again reiterating his endorsement for Speaker Mike Johnson. The president-elect knows that this is a key test, as I said, of party unity and of his influence over his agenda in the coming months as well. With regards to Mike Johnson, look, the relationship between the Speaker and President-elect Trump has been rocky at times, but for the most part, especially over the last several months, he has gotten very close to the Speaker in many respects. There was that bump in the road several weeks ago with regards to the debt ceiling and avoiding a government shutdown. But President-elect Trump has been very practical here. He knows that he needs Mike Johnson in order to advance his agenda in the first days of his administration. And so he is throwing his full support and his full weight ahead of this vote. As you were speaking with Julie a few minutes ago, Thomas Massie right now, the only holdout that we know of, but we should find out very shortly, within the next hour or so, whether or not President-elect Trump's his endorsement, whether it indeed is going to keep all of these Republican House members in line on it.
I'm pretty curious, Gabe, about the relationship between Trump and Johnson and how it may have evolved recently. You know, the president-elect went from not supporting Johnson a few weeks ago, or at least not committing to supporting Johnson, to then giving him his total endorsement and reiterating that this morning, calling him a fine man of great ability, saying a win for Johnson's a win for the party. How close is their relationship, and what may have shifted for Trump this week?
Look, it's the practicality of it all, Anna. As I said, the president-elect knows that he needs Mike Johnson at this point. So putting aside any personal feelings about him, look, I was at Mar-a-Lago several days ago during the New Year's Eve party that President-elect Trump threw at his Mar-a-Lago estate. He was asked about Mike Johnson, and he said that he believes he has the votes. Of course, that could be wishful thinking at this point, but the president-elect is betting on this. He's betting that his, what he views as a mandate coming off this election, that he will be able to wrangle all of these House members in line. Now, at the time, on New Year's Eve, he was asked whether he had placed any direct calls to some of these House members. He said he had not at that point, but he would if necessary. Now, we don't have any reporting to suggest that he has physically made those calls in the last several days. What we do know is right now, President-elect Trump, his motorcade arrived at his golf club here in Palm Beach County a short time ago.
Okay, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Keep us posted. Up next, a brand new Congress opens on Capitol Hill within minutes now, and the first order of business for the House is electing a new speaker. Yes, you already know that. Why we could see another floor fight as Mike Johnson tries to hold on to his gavel.
At BetMGM, everyone gets a welcome offer. So whether you're courtside trying to hit the over or up here trying to hit the under, or hitting that win with your crew. Oh, yeah, see defense. Only up here with the same game parlay. Yeah! BetMGM's got your back. Get your welcome offer and play with the sportsbook born in Vegas. Oh, these things. Really?
Get up to a $1,500 new customer offer and bonus bets when you sign up now. BetMGM. Download and bet today.
After Homoglow cleaned our place for $19, we fired our old housekeeper. Homoglow tackled everything, from our kitchen to our bathroom, all our laundry. You just pick a date, pick a cleaner, and enjoy a spotless house for $19.
For gentle, dependable constipation relief, try Senecot. It works differently than other laxatives because it's made from the senna plant, a natural vegetable laxative ingredient. Gentle, dependable Senecot. Also available in delicious gummies.
If you take or have taken Humira for moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis and still have symptoms, you don't have to settle. Ask your gastroenterologist if switching to Rinvoq is right for you. It's one of the latest treatments from the makers of Humira. Rinvoq works differently than Humira and may help. Rinvoq is a once-daily pill that can deliver rapid symptom relief, lasting steroid-free remission, and helps visibly reduce damage of the intestinal lining.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal, cancers including lymphoma and skin. Serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events: infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Rapid symptom relief and lasting steroid-free remission are possible with Rinvoq. Ask your gastroenterologist if switching to Rinvoq is right for you. You could pay as little as $0 per month.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's what Grandpa used to play.
When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you.
Call 1-800-714-2088. That's 1-800-714-2088.
Do you ever wish you could just think faster again? Are you tired of reaching for names and words during conversations? Trust me, you're not alone. That's why we developed new Doctor's Preferred Mindful Advantage, the cutting-edge, science-backed brain health supplement that will help keep your mental edge sharp.
To get your complimentary sample of new Mindful Advantage, just text MIND to 215-215.
Mindful Advantage helps you think faster by targeting 5 areas of brain function: attention, learning and memory, language, motor function, and even mood, with 5 key brain-boosting ingredients backed by 5 clinical studies. Don't settle for slowing down. Keep your mind and memory going at full speed with Mindful Advantage.
To get your complimentary sample of new Mindful Advantage, just text MIND to 215-215. Text now and we'll send you a bottle of Doctor's Preferred Magnesium absolutely free. Mindful Advantage is not available in stores. Just text MIND to 215-215 now.
Okay, we're keeping a very close eye on Capitol Hill. Speaker Johnson just gavelled in there on the House chamber, and this is the 119th Congress about to convene in just a few minutes. There will be a call to order, a prayer, a pledge of allegiance, and then the first order of business will be to elect a new House Speaker. It's not clear just how long that could take, as current Speaker Mike Johnson may not have the votes needed to win on the very first ballot. Joining us from Capitol Hill now is Melanie Zanona, Punchbowl News senior congressional reporter and MSNBC political contributor. Melanie, you and your team at Punchbowl have some new reporting about where key lawmakers stand this morning on Johnson. What are you learning?
Yeah, well, it looks like Mike Johnson is locking down some critical votes over these last few hours. He is in a much stronger position heading into this vote than he was even just a couple hours ago. I'm told that the House Freedom Caucus huddled this morning. They had a long debate about where they stand, how they're feeling. And I'm told that several previous people who were either on the fence or uncommitted now say that they are going to back Mike Johnson, and that the reason they're doing so is because they're viewing it really as a vote for Donald Trump's agenda. And I caught up with one of those previous holdouts. His name is Eli Crane. He's a conservative from Arizona. He voted against Kevin McCarthy in the previous speaker battles, and he told me he's probably going to vote for Mike Johnson here coming up. So that is a huge positive development for Mike Johnson. It comes after he's been making calls and having meetings. It comes after I also reported Donald Trump has been making calls on his behalf, lobbying people like Congressman Chip Roy. But that being said, Anna, that doesn't mean he has the votes necessarily on the first round. He's working with incredibly tight margins. He already has at least one hard no. That's Thomas Massey from Kentucky. And so based on our math, he likely can only afford to lose one other Republican in order to keep this speaker's gavel. And several other Republicans are still uncommitted at this point. That includes Annie Biggs, the former chair of the House Freedom Caucus, Chip Roy, another member that I mentioned, and Victoria Spartz, someone who's been a real wild card for the leadership team over these past few years. But there is growing confidence in Mike Johnson's orbit that he's going to be able to land this plane, if not on the first ballot, maybe in a second or third. But we'll have to watch, because again, there is pretty much zero room for error here.
That's right. It could get dicey. Melanie Zanona, thank you so much for being here with us. And that's going to do it for us today. I'll be back Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. For now, I'm Anna Cabrera reporting from New York. Andrea Mitchell is in the seat and picks up our coverage right now.
Good day, everyone. I'm Andrea Mitchell in Washington. A big day on Capitol Hill, just blocks from here. At the U.S. Capitol, the 119th Congress is getting underway. In the Senate, it will be business as usual. Vice President Harris, as president of the Senate, will swear in 32 new and re-elected senators. But Republicans are now in the majority. That's the big change, and that means they get to chair all the committees that control what gets to the floor for votes. The real drama, of course, on the other side of the Capitol, as Mike Johnson faces a potentially contentious fight to hold on to the Speaker's gavel. Johnson this morning.
This election is not just about one person. It's about moving forward with the America First agenda. The mandate was given by the American people, by the electorate. They are expecting us to get to work, and we don't have time for drama.
2 years ago, Kevin McCarthy did not get a majority for 4 days and 15 roll calls. To win, he had to make so many concessions, he was ousted just 10 months later. In the next half hour, each party will be presenting their choices. Johnson for the Republicans, Hakeem Jeffries for the Democrats. There will be nominating speeches. Why is all this so important? Congress cannot take any action until it chooses a speaker. And there's a lot that needs to get done. Just look at the calendar. Just this coming Monday is January 6th. That's the constitutionally mandated date to certify the presidential election. If there is not a confirmed speaker, we could face a constitutional crisis. President-elect Trump is putting his full support behind Mike Johnson for another term as Speaker, a little belatedly, but full support now. No Republican has emerged to challenge Johnson, but with one of the slimmest majorities in House history, he can afford only one defection within his party. That's all, if all members are in attendance. And Republican Tom Massey of Kentucky is vehemently opposed to Johnson gaining the Speaker's gavel again. Several members of the Freedom Caucus are not as definitive in their opposition as Massey, but are still not committing their support yet. We begin with NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake, New York Times chief Washington correspondent Carl Hulse, political analyst and former press secretary to John Boehner and Paul Ryan during their speakership fights, Brendan Buck, and former Michigan Congressman Republican Fred Upton, and former Pennsylvania Congresswoman Democrat Susan Wild. Garrett, first to you. 2 years ago, this process took 4 days, 15 rounds of voting. Walk us through what we expect this hour. The Speaker's obviously been busy. They've been corralling votes, maybe making some trades. Things are being promised. Arms are being twisted. What's going on?
Yeah, Andrea, the Speaker has been largely holed up in his office since about yesterday at this time, meeting with some of these members who are holdouts, although he tells reporters he has made no promises and offered no quid pro quos as they get underway here on the floor to get the votes that will be necessary to get him across the finish line. I can tell you the vibes around Speaker Johnson are good. He and his allies have been predicting that he will be elected Speaker again today, possibly as quickly as on this first ballot, but none of them can say for sure because the margins are so thin. We talked about Thomas Massey, the Kentucky Republican, who's made it abundantly clear that he is a hard no against Johnson. That leaves literally no margin for error. If every Democrat votes for Hakeem Jeffries as expected, there can be no votes for anyone not named Mike Johnson from the Republican side of the aisle, or Johnson doesn't get there, or at least he doesn't get there on the first ballot. Now, Johnson has deployed his allies on the Hill. He has deployed his allies off the Hill, gotten an endorsement from not just President-elect Trump, but also from Elon Musk. Johnson said Trump has been making calls on his behalf. Now, as the members have almost entirely headed to the floor, there's really nothing left to do but for each member to stand up and have their votes counted. I think perhaps the best thing Johnson has going for him is the appearance of this backstop, the idea that there is a lot of work to get done for this Republican Congress and for the Republican trifecta here in Washington. And none of that work, none of it can happen in earnest until they elect a House Speaker.
So, Carl, Johnson believes that he's going to win on the first ballot. What are you hearing from members? Because we haven't heard that much opposition, but there is there's argument over the fact that he went along with the budget plan last week.
Well, I don't want to disagree with Speaker Johnson, but this election is about one person, and he is that person. There's some unhappiness with what he did. I'm hearing a lot from people. They do expect him to eventually be elected Speaker, mainly because there's no one else really trying to be Speaker. So that's a great advantage for him. But I'm also hearing that maybe some people want to send a message to him and, not give it to him on the first ballot. Brendan might be hearing something similar or different. But I think it's also there's a lot of attention seekers in the Republican rank.
You think?
And this is a great attention-getting moment. So maybe,
Matt Gaetz isn't there anymore, but
do we even know that for sure? But I mean, I think he should be able to pull it out, but it's we have to watch this. This is one of these rare moments. We don't exactly know what's going to happen, and we have to watch.
Now, first they have to make sure that everyone is there to vote, so they have a quorum, which is a roll call vote in itself. That takes about 15 minutes or so. Brandon Buck, you've been through this so many times with John Boehner and, with previous speakers, and you've watched it all. How is this different? Is Donald Trump the big X factor here?
Donald Trump is certainly helpful for Mike Johnson. His support, I think, is certainly necessary, but not sufficient. I mean, Mike Johnson would have no chance if it were not for Donald Trump sort of leaning in on him, because I think all of them understand this is very disruptive. To what end are we having this fight? Obviously, he needs to have his confirmation, certification of his election in a few days. I will say, Kevin McCarthy also had a relatively good vibes going into his election. We thought he might have trouble on the first votes, kind of similar to how we're feeling now. We thought maybe he would lose a handful of members and it might take multiple ballots. He lost 19 or 20. It was a much higher number than we thought.
Wasn't there some personal animus to him, which isn't the case so much with Johnson?
Certainly, there was some, but it was a surprising number at that moment. And the other thing, the sort of wild card I'm looking out for, Kevin McCarthy lost 4 or 5 freshman members. Now we've got a number of our Freedom Caucus members that we're keeping an eye on to see how they tend to vote. But are there freshman members who want to come in and make a name for themselves, get a little attention from themselves early on? I think it's important. There's a very good chance he's not going to have the votes on the first ballot. The big thing I'm looking for is how big is that pool of people that he has to start working over? How many people does he have to make promises to? Is it 4 or 5? Then those people are pretty isolated. And I think Donald Trump can probably lean on them pretty well, and the rest of the conference can lean on them. What made Kevin McCarthy have so much trouble last time was that was a big number. There was a lot of strength in numbers, safety in numbers for those people where they could all stick together and they weren't out by themselves. Now, if he has 4 or 5, I think this could end maybe today. If this ends up double digits, we could be still talking about this tomorrow.
And Ali Vitale on the Hill just caught up with Mike Johnson as he was entering the chamber. And we should point out that as of noon, he's no longer Speaker Mike Johnson. He's just a member of Congress until he is elected, if he is elected. Let's listen to what Mike Johnson had to say.
Clear path.
I think we're there. We'll find out very soon.
Have you made any deals or negotiations?
I have made no deals with anyone, and I'm very proud to say that.
So, Carl, he's working it over. And what kind of things could he be offering? Positions on the Intel Committee, chairmanships?
I mean, there's all sorts of winks and nods you can offer. I mean, mainly what people seem to want is assurance they're going to actually have serious discussions about spending cuts. This is actually what got Kevin McCarthy in trouble in some ways, was he made deals and then people thought he went back on those deals. I think that they mainly are seeking assurances that they're going to be serious about budget cuts, but that's all smoke and mirrors at this point. He's saying he's not making deals, but he's telling people something. And I think the Trump approval is really interesting here, because Donald Trump lost 36 Republicans in the House on a big vote on the debt limit a few weeks ago. I don't think Donald Trump he doesn't want to have another second big vote where he's kind of pushed back by the House Republicans. So I think he's probably going to put, as Brendan said, a lot of pressure on.
And he doesn't want a contentious rebellion here, because January 6th is looming right around the corner. It's Monday. Fred Upton, let's talk about, from your experience as a former member, there is a real divide now between those who are more conscious about spending and spending cuts and those who, want to vote for these programs. And that's what happened with the continuing resolution. That's where Mike Johnson got into some trouble with Donald Trump, as well as with
frustration. Yeah, there's been a real frustration over the last couple of years that the regular appropriation process has really broken down. There are 12 different bills. One is agriculture, one's foreign aid, one's defense, etc. The House didn't take a lot of them up. They took up some. The Senate didn't take any to the House floor or to the Senate floor. And as a consequence, he ended up with this massive continuing resolution year after year after year. When I was first elected, we would take up the labor, as an example, we would take up the labor HHS appropriation spending bill. We'd spend a whole week on it on the House floor. Any member could offer a germane amendment. If you added spending, you had to have an amendment to reduce spending by the same amount. That doesn't happen anymore. And that's a real frustration. I mean, the appropriators are able to do their bills, but at the end of the day, you don't have any real bipartisan agreement on the House floor. And when the Senate doesn't take the bills up on the Senate floor, you got gridlock. So there's got to be a real change there. Now, past speakers, Kevin McCarthy, Mike Johnson last year, they all said, we're going to go regular order. We're going to bring these up one at a time. But it didn't happen. Frankly, they didn't have the votes sometimes to even get out of the Rules Committee to even consider it on the House floor. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking to see. I hope a positive change in the 119th Congress. And I think there are a good number of Republicans, both from the Freedom Caucus as well as the Problem Solvers Caucus and others, moderate groups, saying, let's get back to where things ought to be. But let's face it, we have a real problem with spending. $36 trillion national debt. Where are we? That's why the new president-elect 47 Trump has reached out to Musk and Visclami to try and really see if they can't get some spending under control, which means long-term spending. You're going to be talking entitlements, which is in essence 2/3 of the budget, Medicare, Medicaid, all those different things, interest payments on the debt. Interest is almost equal to what defense spending is these days. So huge issues that have to be dealt with. And, what we're seeing today, I mean, this will be maybe a 1-vote margin for speaker, when this thing is completed, if Mike Johnson is elected, and I think that he will be. But you've got all these other issues now that are coming, the debt ceiling, appropriation bills, obviously immigration reform, which so many of us want to see resolved. But that margin that Mike Johnson has today is even going to be slimmer in the couple months ahead, because 3 House members have been selected by the Trump administration to serve in their administration. And so, unlike the Senate, where you have immediate replacement by the governor when you have a senator that is gone, for the House, it means a special election. It means days to collect ballots, to signatures, petitions to get on the ballot. You've got a primary election. You've got a general election. It takes usually 3, 4, even 5 months to replace a single House member. And so Mike Johnson is going to be 3 votes even shorter. So that margin, which today is at 219, will be at 216. And the Democrats are at 215. So, one missed plane, somebody not making the traffic light to get there to vote, someone getting COVID or sick, or, a funeral in their family. I mean, God help us, a death like we had with Jackie Walorski, my good friend and neighboring colleague a couple of years ago, was killed in an auto accident during the August recess. You're going to have a lot of these close, tight votes that you all in the press are going to be really watching to see how much control the new president, as well as what I expect to be Mike Johnson as Speaker, will have to try and drive the bus to actually get things done.
And to get things done, they're going to need Democrats, and that will, of course, anger the Freedom Caucus and other critics on the Republican side. Susan Wild, Democrats are expected today to unanimously support Jeffries. Is the party going to sit back and watch the Republican infighting? They certainly did last time. There was not a single vote against Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, I don't know whether every single Democrat will vote for Hakeem Jeffries, although I think they will, but they certainly will not be voting for Mike Johnson. And I think that it's highly unlikely that Johnson gets this on a first vote. For one thing, as people have already pointed out, Tom Massey is absolutely a no, and I fully expect that he will stick to that. I disagree with him on a lot of things, but he's a man of principle and he says what he means, and I don't think he'll yield. I do not expect any freshman Republicans to vote against Mike Johnson simply because it's a lot different than it was when Kevin McCarthy's speaker fight occurred. Right now, President Trump is pulling all of the strings. And I don't think there are any newly elected Republicans in that conference who want to have Donald Trump's attention shining on them because they didn't vote for his choice of speaker. Having said that, I know it's been reported that that Trump's allies are starting to be concerned and looking about for who might be an alternate speaker, and that could very well, and if the tide changes, it will change because somebody in Trump world says that there's somebody else that's acceptable to them. The one thing that I think you really need to think about is today's first vote, at least, is not going to be about policy. People who vote against the speaker will tell you that it's because of one policy or another, as Fred Upton just mentioned. But I will say there is a craving for drama in that place. I'm watching the House floor on your monitor here, and it's very reminiscent. And, you know, people like drama, some in particular, and some of the names who have been mentioned as holdouts or undecided are people who very much love to be the center of attention. And there's nothing that gets you the center of attention on opening day of a new session than voting against the chosen speaker from your own party. So I think that drama will be the order of the day for at least the first and second vote. I think things may get serious then, and we may see some coalition. I know that it was reported earlier that some of the holdouts had come around, but you never really know until they've cast their vote. And I mean, one person who comes to mind, you know, Spartz's name has been, Victoria Spartz has been mentioned. Frankly, I don't think there's any question that she will at least eventually vote for Mike Johnson. Talk about liking drama and liking to be the center of attention. She's craving that, but ultimately she will be convinced. But Chip Roy, I don't know what he will do. Crane and so forth. So Scott Perry, I think there are some who are going to hold out and really want to point to something that they got in exchange for a yes vote for Mike Johnson.
And Susan, when we've been talking, we've been also watching a split screen with the House floor. It is a little bit like the first day back at school or the first day at camp. Families are allowed to come. You see children, grandchildren, Mike Johnson taking pictures with a baby, which is what politicians do, or what anyone does when you see a cute baby. But in any case, there's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, people are milling around, Jim Jordan. So there are people who are very aggressive, you know, advocates for their positions, but there's also it's a new year, they're coming back from a long break, and they're allowed to have their families and their kids.
Absolutely. And let me just say that you mentioned the people who are on the floor other than the members. Until the speaker is elected and the rules package is passed, there are no rules that exist right now. And
that's such a good point, Congresswoman.
Which is why, and look, decorum on the House floor is not what it used to be by any means. And a lot of people, even if the rules were in place, break them these days. But I will say that things that you saw in the Kevin McCarthy speaker battle, including almost coming to, you know, a fist fight and just really bad behavior by a lot of people. A lot of that has to do with the fact that there are no rules. People are, by the way, even members are allowed to take children under the age of 12 on the House floor anytime for votes. But you're not permitted to take your spouse, your older children, your friends. But you will see, and especially if this goes on for a prolonged amount of time, like Kevin McCarthy's did, you will see over the course of hours or days a change up of who's on the House floor, who they bring. I mean, somebody might bring their dog on the House floor. There's no rules right now. And so that makes it a little bit of the wild, wild west, and makes it, and it also feeds into this sense of drama that a lot of people, or not, I don't want to say a lot of people, that some people will have during this election.
And to Garrett Haig, who's watched all of this and is watching up close from up there. Garrett, the dynamic is kind of a free-for-all as they go through this quorum call. We don't know what's been happening behind the scenes. We'll probably find out more about that later, what deals have been cut. But that's certainly part of this.
Yeah, that's right. And it's very difficult to find out in real time what kind of handshake agreements might have or have not been made. I remember the last time we did this 2 years ago with Kevin McCarthy, it was a very tedious process after the fact to figure out what exactly he'd agreed to, what was in the rules package, which is one of the first votes that would happen after the speaker is elected, and what other side agreements were made about putting members on the rules committee, for example, or the most notable, the change in the motion to vacate, the idea of how easy it would be to get rid of a speaker. Ironically, in this case, there is a standing deal struck between two of the folks you see on your screen right now, the tall gentleman in the center, Dusty Johnson, who I believe is the outgoing chair of the Republican Main Street Caucus, made a deal with the Freedom Caucus to say this is not tenable. In this new Congress, the goal is to bump that number back up to 9 members who would have to band together to get rid of a speaker, all of them coming from the majority party. So a lot of that discussion, and I think this might be part of the reason that Johnson's road today could, I emphasize could, be a little smoother than McCarthy's, is that the McCarthy experience meant that a lot of this discussion was happening last fall, knowing that the margins were likely to be tight, the dynamics likely to be similar with some of the attention seeking that was just being described, and kind of how to plug these holes before they became a problem on the House floor. That dynamic about family members and little kids, I think, is part of this too. You remember the images, I think many people will, during the McCarthy episode of kids sleeping on their parents' laps on the floor, a lot of angry spouses here who had come to town for swearing in parties and a weekend of celebration that their wife or husband had been elected to Congress, all of that dashed by this ugly speakership fight. Another thing that this new Republican majority is trying desperately to avoid, if for no other reason than to look like the Republican Party, which will be in unified control of Washington, is actually in control of something over this next hour.
Well, what's so extraordinary is that we're talking about a 1 or 2 vote margin, no matter what happens today, and that there's going to have to be, votes, that tough votes like the debt ceiling that require going to the Democrats, and going to the Democrats can be a death sentence for a political death sentence for any speaker, Republican Speaker of the House, going forward, even if he gets by today. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment as we continue to watch what's happening on the House floor with the election of a speaker.
What's up, Carl Nation? It's your #1 broker with the best full-service wealth management skills in the biz.
Actually, I'm seeing something from Schwab.
Uh-oh. Yeah, Schwab lets you invest and trade on your own.
And if you want, they can even manage it for you.
Not to mention, Schwab has a team of specialists for taxes, insurance, and estate planning, all with low fees.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Carl.
Schwab, a modern approach to wealth management.
Here's to getting better with age.
Cheers to beating these two every Thursday.
Help fuel today with Boost High Protein. Complete nutrition you need and the flavor you love. So here's to now. Now available, Boost Max.
The fact that St. Jude take care of all this is what's keeping my baby girl alive.
It's everything for us. We wouldn't know what to do if we couldn't afford for our little girl to survive. And St. Jude gives us that.
Hello, I'm Veronica.
My name is Darvin.
I'm Courtney.
I'm Jackie.
And we switched to Consumer Cellular.
My previous provider is terrible.
Surprise, we've changed your rate.
We wouldn't get to talk to a person.
And then all of a sudden it disconnects.
Now with Consumer Cellular, no problems.
Better customer service. They tell me exactly what I'm paying and why I'm paying for it.
It's within $1 of being half of my old bill.
With Verizon, I was paying about $150 a month. With Consumer Cellular, I'm paying about half that.
Okay, this is doable. This is affordable.
I'm getting the exact same coverage for half the price. That's a beautiful thing.
Done deal.
I got to keep my phone. I got to keep my number. Switching over took about 20 minutes. That's it.
It's month to month. Very simple.
It's been amazing.
I was now a Consumer Cellular customer.
And I've been bragging to my friends about it too.
Call 800-918-5789 to switch and save up to half with Consumer Cellular. Plus, for a limited time, new customers get their second month free.
Buying a car is kind of a big deal, but you use the Car Gurus app. That's a price drop alert, so the deals come to you. Nope. Big deals right when you need them. Car Gurus, the #1 most visited car shopping site.
To buy or not to buy? That is their question. And nobody knows shoppers better than Shopify. The undisputed, undefeated checkout champion of the world. Businesses that want to win with Shopify.
Send those pics in. What we running with today? You already know.
Joe, Trav is about to go off tonight.
Facts. That's the play. Run it, and I'll see y'all tonight. Might have to run that. I told y'all to run that. Come on now. You said it. Come on. You said it.
Download the PrizePicks app today. Enter $5 and get $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game.
I have to find a babysitter.
I have a lot of questions.
When can they start? Today? Now? How about Saturday? Are they background checked?
My wife and I haven't been out in a year.
We need a date night. No offense.
Find all the care you need at care.com.
This is the story of the one who doesn't just see a broken dock. He sees lost revenue, a late night, and work stalled to a halt. Thankfully, he has the experience to handle whatever comes his way and has Grainger on his side, offering access to technical product specialists and the scale to deliver fast, so he can keep his business in gear and always moving forward. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Donald Trump plans to reshape the U.S. government.
Democrats have wasted no time in laying the groundwork to fight the incoming Trump administration. Donald Trump wants a presidential cabinet full of loyalists.
Don't miss the weekend, Saturday and Sunday mornings at 8
On MSNBC.
Stay informed on the biggest issues of the day. MSNBC has you covered wherever you are. Watch, read, and listen. For the in-depth coverage and analysis you need, stay with MSNBC.
Welcome back. We are watching the drama on the House floor, sort of the build-up to roll call votes, which will follow. They're taking a quorum call still. That's about a 15, 20-minute process. It could be a little longer to make sure that everyone is there. And while they do that, as you can see, there are children on the floor. And one of the things, Carl Hulse from the New York Times is with me, the chief Washington correspondent. And Carl, you've been covering the Hill for so many years. But one of the interesting things about today, because there are no rules, because they don't have a speaker yet, they don't have a rules committee, they don't have rules adopted, anybody can go on the floor, the children, anyone else, but also they permitted cameras.
Right.
Now, there's been from several decades, didn't used to be, but several decades, there have been C-SPAN cameras in a fixed position, which will show you a wide shot and whoever is speaking, but not everything else that's going on around it. But there are cameras permitted in to shoot all kinds of different angles, and that's how we saw the almost fisticuffs
correct
on the Kevin McCarthy roll call, the 15 roll calls, and that's why you're seeing all of these other very interesting pictures. I wish we could see this all the time.
Yeah, I have to stay for the media. We wish this would happen all the time.
Absolutely.
You know, they're letting still photographers, the cameras are down there, and you get just a much more up close view of it. I don't think the members necessarily want this all the time because it would show probably a little
They
bit.
want those pictures, though, for their constituents, for their campaign videos, and for their families.
Yeah, but it would probably show a little too much if they were down there all the time. But it is much better than the fixed positions. And, you know, that goes, the whole C-SPAN and use of cameras goes back to Newt Gingrich. You remember, Newt Gingrich would give speeches on the House floor at night, and from the fixed position, it would look like he's giving this big speech to the full House attacking the Democrats. So then they started panning back to show that it was actually empty. So the C-SPAN cameras can be manipulated by the leadership.
Well, the House went first with C-SPAN, and my recollection is that Ronald Reagan liked to watch the debates, he said, while he was shaving in the morning and getting ready to come down. But the Senate did not go right away, and there was a big debate in the Senate. We used to, as Senate correspondents, go into the balcony with courtroom artists who would do sketches of the senators as they were debating.
Well, Bob Byrd, who was the stickler in the Senate, did not want to do it until the senators realized the House was becoming much more important because that's what everybody was watching on C-SPAN, so they changed the rules.
The thing people don't realize is that they're not actually C-SPAN cameras usually in there. They're House cameras. It's almost like state media. The House projection and C-SPAN is just the only one that sort of picks it up all day long. The reason that members don't want to change it so that it's like this every day, one, yes, they don't want to catch, whatever conversation they're having with Democrats or whatever, but there's also a sense that the House floor, sadly, is one of the last safe spaces for people to have conversations and it not be politicized. And that sounds strange to hear, but members don't travel together. They don't live in the same city anymore like the way that they used to. And so something that we always heard from members when I was in the Speaker's office is that is one place where you can sit down, have a conversation with somebody from the other party and it not be a big deal. And you can develop friendships like that. Now, maybe that's not a good reason to not be able to see what's on the floor, but to me, it's more of an interesting statement that there are so few places where they are able to actually interact and have a casual moment with each other that they don't want cameras in their face all the time.
It's so interesting. There's also the Speaker's lobby, which is one of my favorite places, but that's where reporters can go in. So there are nosy, I say that affectionately nosy people like reporters there. Let's also talk about the need to certify Donald Trump's election on Monday, on January 6th. Garrett Haake, talk to me about the importance of what Monday represents constitutionally. And of course, we all remember witnessing what happened, 4 years ago when the election was being challenged. And it's expected to be a very different situation, but it is a very important national security, barriers are up, everybody's prepared in case something were to happen on January 6th.
That's right, Andrea. The fact that the certification of the electoral votes falls on January 6th, again, is just a quirk of the calendar. But here we are coming up on Monday for the vote counting process, where you'll have a joint session of Congress convened here on Monday to go through the electoral votes. You'll have another historical irony with Kamala Harris overseeing essentially the finality of the election of the person who defeated her in the election of Donald Trump. That's only if there's a House Speaker to preside. This is the backstop that Johnson has going for him, that by Monday they need to have this all settled so that they can go ahead with the constitutionally mandated parts of this process to install Donald Trump at his inauguration on the 20th. So, this is something that works in Johnson's favor a little bit. He's been making that case publicly and privately to members that they don't want to step on this big moment. As for the differences, I can't even begin to describe how many there are. First of all, the security posture here around the Hill has already been ramped up substantially. The no-climb fencing rings this whole complex. And while it's still relatively easy to go in and out today, that won't be the case come Monday. You've got a completely revamped U.S. Capitol Police with a new chief and a new protective mission, a new focus on intelligence gathering. I think there's a understanding by law enforcement, not just the Capitol Police, but all the alphabet soup of federal agencies who oversee Washington, D.C. and who keep an eye on the Capitol, that there can be no mistakes and there can be no slip-ups on this January 6th. In fact, we just saw last night additional release of information about the person who planted the pipe bombs on the last January 6th still has not been caught or even identified. So there's that kind of specter of security concerns hanging around this coming certification of the electoral votes, as there is the specter of, for our House Republicans, we better not screw this up for the incoming president, without whose coattails many of them probably wouldn't be here.
And Peter Baker's now joining us, the chief White House correspondent with the New York Times. And Peter, there's something else that's happening this week after January 6th, assuming that there is a speaker and that the election is certified, as is constitutionally required. There is a state funeral in Washington after the events in Plains and Atlanta this weekend. And Jimmy Carter will be coming on Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, and lying in repose all day Wednesday, which is a function that can only happen if there is a speaker and a new Congress.
Peter?
Yeah, it's coming at quite an extraordinary time, right? Normally, the death of a president is a moment in our political life that we put down the weapons and partisanship for at least a brief moment to pause and reflect on the life of somebody who served as commander-in-chief. The last three presidents, in fact, who've died, all died in the holiday season. Gerald Ford in 2006, George H.W. Bush in 2018, both after hotly contested elections. But the ceasefires didn't last very long, of course, and I'm not sure that this one will either. We're heading, this comes in between the certification of Donald Trump's victory, as you say, and then presumably the election of a speaker, and then the inauguration on January 20th. But it is a moment where the nation, I think, reflects on how things have changed since the president served in the 1970s.
And in fact, Peter, you've been writing such wonderful perspective that you have from covering the White House for so many years on how things have changed. We understand from Donald Trump, I think he said this on New Year's Eve to the assembled press, that he will be attending the funeral. And we know that dignitaries are going to come from all over the world. I know of former prime ministers and others who are coming because Jimmy Carter, in the 43 years after his presidency, as well as, of course, Camp David and the Panama Canal Treaty and other things that he did while he was in office. But in those years afterwards, he circled the globe, and he was a very important part of certifying elections, monitoring elections, curing diseases in Africa, guinea worm and river blindness, bringing so much perspective to human rights around the world. So let's just listen in for a moment, because the quorum at least is present so that they can proceed with what is going to happen. Soon we will be hearing the nominating speeches. Peter, if you want to speak for a moment about just Carter and what he represented and how things have changed since he was president.
Well, he represented, a force for good on the international stage for, representing the United States, in effect, in an informal, unofficial role. He didn't always comport with the policy of the sitting president back in Washington, either Democrat or Republican. Both the presidents of both parties found him at times to be kind of irritating because he would criticize them or take a different position than they would on important international affairs. But I think that you're right that the commitment to democracy, the commitment to fighting disease, the commitment to conflict resolution, earned him a great deal of respect and admiration around the world and on the United States. He won the Nobel Peace Prize not when he was president, negotiated the Camp David Accords, but in 2002, after years of showing what a former president can do. He once said, I think, that he felt he could get some things done as a former president more easily than he could actually as a sitting president. He had the freedom and latitude to say what he wanted, to speak his mind. Again, not always popular, but it was, of course, a matter of principle. I think everybody respected that he spoke from principle, even if they didn't agree with him.
And one of those examples was when he went to North Korea and negotiated a deal with Kim Jong-un's father, much to the distress of Bill Clinton, who was the president. He announced it on cable news before even telling the president. Right now, Lisa McLean is going to nominate Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson. Let's listen.
For the 119th Congress, the name of the Honorable Mike Johnson, a representative from the state of Louisiana.
They've done the quorum call so that we now know that there are 217 present, so he can lose 2, not just 1. He doesn't need 218.
On November 5th, the American people gave us a great opportunity to get America back on the right track. They gave us an opportunity to get back to normal and to get back to the real issues that the country faces right now. People want the opportunity to take care of their families. They simply want to provide for their children and give them a prosperous future. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity today to do just that. We have an opportunity to take our country back. With Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, and President Donald J. Trump in charge, we have the opportunity to put America first again. We have an opportunity to do something about crime. We have an opportunity to do something about the border. And we have an opportunity to take care of our veterans. We and every single member in this chamber, and those of you watching at home and on TV, should be looking forward, knowing that America will be respected again. Our country is the last bastion of hope. If we fail, then who? This is why we are focused on the issues that the majority of Americans care about: God, family, country, faith, freedom, and traditional American values. And we should be making it easier for people to achieve the American dream. Over 14 months ago, Mike Johnson took on a daunting task. No speaker is perfect, and no one will ever be. However, achieving perfection requires incremental gains and hard decisions along the way. None of us will get exactly what we want. The fundamental collective goal of this body is to make progress for the American people in which we represent. And we have done just that under Mike's leadership. We should be celebrating and building upon his efforts, our efforts. Mike has remained the same kind and caring person as he was before he assumed this role. He's an honest broker. He shows you his true beliefs at face value. He is steadfast in his values of faith, family, and love of this country. He knows our brightest days are still ahead of us, and I do too. I am hopeful for the next Congress. I am optimistic that we will focus on those issues that people truly care about. I know Mike will be an integral part of this country's comeback. He will lead us through another successful Republican majority. As chairwoman of the Unified House Republican Conference, I can say proudly that we are ready to govern. It is my honor to present our conference's nominee for the Speaker of the People's House, the Honorable Mike Johnson from the state of Louisiana.
Hank Johnson of Georgia was missing the quorum call, but now is present, so now they do have the full numbers. So it's back to 218 for a majority. He can only afford to lose one.
The clerk now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I've had a little bit of practice, and clearly my colleagues took notice. I rise to place a name in nomination, but first, I want to acknowledge my colleague from Michigan for her heartfelt and personal nominating speech. As someone who's given a few of these, I can say you served your caucus, your conference well, Representative McClain. But Mr. Clerk, today I rise on behalf of the governing majority of the House of Representatives. The American people have sent a strong message that they want their elected leaders working together to tackle the affordability crisis. There is only one leader in this chamber with a track record of compromise, conviction, and compassion. There is only one leader who understands the needs of the working people and has lived the American dream himself and is committed to ensuring its promise for future generations. There is only one leader who knows how to negotiate a bipartisan deal and then stick to that deal. House Democrats are united behind the most powerful legislative leader in this chamber, Hakeem Jeffries of Brooklyn. House Democrats, under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries, are committed to bipartisanship and common sense solutions to America's most pressing challenges. In the face of chaos and dysfunction over the last 2 years, our caucus has kept the government funded, kept our allies protected, and the economy secured from the catastrophic default. In the 119th Congress, we will work with the incoming administration to make life better, safer, and more affordable for working families. And the incoming administration must also recognize that while my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are divided, and while compromise remains a dirty word for so many, Congress won't be able to keep the lights on, let alone pass anything of substance, without the buy-in and blessing of House Democrats and Hakeem Jeffries. Make no mistake, Democrats want to bring down the cost of living, build more housing, and lower the cost of everyday items like food, medicine, and childcare. Even as the extreme rhetoric rises in this chamber and in the public square, we will not stop advocating for the policies that do the most good for the most people. Because of Hakeem's leadership, we will never abandon our values or sacrifice our bedrock principles of freedom and democracy. When America's enemies abroad threatened our democratic ally, Ukraine, when terrorists attacked our strongest ally, Israel, it was Hakeem Jeffries and House Democrats who delivered the votes and stood tall for America's national security. When the least, the lost, and the left behind were threatened with devastating cuts, Hakeem Jeffries stood with America's mothers, children, and veterans. When the incoming administration wanted to raise the debt limit by trillions of dollars in order to finance tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, leaving middle-class families to pay for the bill and leaving them high and dry, Hakeem Jeffries didn't just say no, he said, that's why there is only one true candidate today for Speaker. So, Mr. Clerk, I am honored to rise today at the direction of the House Democratic Caucus to place into nomination for election to the position of Speaker of the House of Representatives, the pride of Brooklyn, the gentleman from New York, Hakeem Jeffries.
The names of the Honorable Mike Johnson, a representative-elect from the state of Louisiana, and the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, a representative-elect from the state of New York, have been placed in nomination. Are there further nominations? There being no further nominations, the clerk appoints the following tellers. The gentleman from North Carolina, Ms. Fox. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Morelli. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Stile. And the gentlewoman from California, Mrs. Torres. The tellers will come forward and take their seats at the desk in front of the speaker's rostrum.
So this is the procedure by which they will start the first roll call. Only 2 leaders have been proposed. Mike Johnson, you saw the nomination by Lisa McClain from Michigan. You saw Pete Aguiar from California nominating Hakeem Jeffries. There's strong support for Hakeem Jeffries, and no one else was nominated. And now we will begin the first of the total, the first roll call. Brendan Buck is with me here. Brendan, there is a certain amount of uncertainty as to what is going to happen because, as you were saying earlier, some people might want to show their concerns about government spending and other things and might want to take a stand, at least on the first roll call.
Yeah, this is certainly a way to make a name for yourself. I found it interesting, Pete Aguilar there, and in nominating Hakeem Jeffries, sort of needling some of these Republicans, saying, just you wait. Hakeem Jeffries is going to be a part of every negotiation that goes on this year. This majority can't do anything without Democrats being involved, and that's functionally the complaint that a lot of these members have, is that Mike Johnson has been too quick to turn to Democrats to negotiate some of the things. Now, of course, Pete Aguilar is right. There's very little chance that Republicans are going to be able to fund the government or increase the debt limit just as their own. We just saw that. We just learned that they need Democrats to be able to do those things at the end of the year as they were trying to clean things up. So just interesting that Mike Johnson's detractors are getting sort of poked in the chest as they're now needing to make the choice of whether they're going to vote for him.
And that was a little sly.
They know what they're doing. They've been through this a few times.
Yes. These people all know each other and actually get along fairly well outside of the chamber.
Of course.
For the most part. And as we pointed out just a few minutes ago, there were, in the quorum call, which is required to see who's there and make sure all are present, only 433 members, not 434. But Hank Johnson of Georgia, a Democrat, came in late, missed the quorum call, so now there are 434 members present and available to vote. A majority is 218. And we will show the tally as it goes, and so you can all follow it on screen as well, as we will be carrying all of this live. Garrett Hake, if you want to chime in while we wait for the roll to be called.
We did get a little bit of news just in the last few minutes about the direction this vote may be going and why. We learned from Victoria Spartz, the Republican Congresswoman from Indiana, who'd been an enormous question mark in this process, that she will in fact vote for Speaker Johnson to remain Speaker Johnson, posting favorably about him on X, confirming to our colleague Julie Sirkin that means she'd be a yes. Some good news for Johnson there, some bad from the other end of the alphabet. Tim Burchett, a Republican from Tennessee, saying he thinks this will go multiple ballots. Burchett is one of those question mark votes. Obviously, last name starts with a B. He could ensure that fairly quickly into this process by voting for someone other than Mike Johnson to be Speaker. And we've learned a little bit, as I think we're about to get underway here, feel free to cut me off, about what Johnson appears to have been promising members.
The roll now will be called.
Yeah,
and those responding to their names will indicate by surname the nominee of their choosing. The reading clerk will now call the roll.
That's it.
Adams. Jeffries. Adderholt. Johnson. Aguilar. Jeffries. Alford. Johnson. Allen. Johnson. Amo. Jeffries. Amode of Nevada. Johnson. Ansari. Jeffries. Arrington. Johnson. Auchincloss. Jeffries. Babin. Johnson. Bacon. Johnson. Baird. Johnson. Balderson. Johnson. Ballant. Jeffries. Barr. Johnson. Bedagan. Jeffries. Barrett. Barrett. Baumgartner. Barrett. Johnson.
This is the coolest innovation of our lifetime. The world's first titanium nonstick pan.
Barrett. Johnson. Baumgartner. Johnson. Bean of Florida. Johnson. Bost. Johnson. Boyle of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. Rakeen. Johnson. Bresnahan. Johnson. Brown. Jeffries. Brownlee. Jeffries. Buchanan. Johnson. Budzinski. Jeffries. Burgett. Johnson. Burleson. Johnson. Bynum. Jeffries. Calvert. Johnson. Kamick. Johnson. Carbajal. Jeffries. Carey. Johnson. Carson. Carson. Carter of Georgia. Johnson. Carter of Louisiana. Jeffries. Carter of Texas. Johnson. Kassar. Jeffries. Case. Jeffries. Caston. Jeffries. Castor of Florida. Jeffries. Castro of Texas. Jeffries. Shifferless McCormick. Jeffries. Chew. Jeffries. Ciscomani.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Cisneros. Jeffries. Clark of Massachusetts. Jeffries. Clark of New York. Jeffries. Cleaver. Jeffries. Klein. Johnson. Cloud. Cloud. Clyburn. Jeffries. Clyde. Clyde. Cohen. Jeffries. Cole. Johnson. Collins. Johnson. Comer. Johnson. Conaway. Jeffries. Connolly. Jeffries. Correa. Jeffries. Costa. Jeffries. Courtney. Jeffries. Craig. Jeffries. Crane. Johnson. Craik. Johnson. Crawford. Johnson. Crenshaw. Johnson. Crockett. Jeffries. Crow. Jeffries. Cuellar. Jeffries. Davids of Kansas. Jeffries. Davidson. Johnson. Davis of Illinois. Jeffries. Davis of North Carolina. Jeffries. Dean of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. DeGette. Jeffries. De La Cruz. Mike Johnson. Johnson. DeLauro. Jeffries. Delbene. Jeffries. Deluzio. Jeffries. DeSarnier. Jeffries. Dexter. Jeffries. Diaz-Balart. Johnson. Deagle. Jeffries. Duggett. Jeffries. Donalds. Johnson. Downey.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Dunn of Florida. Johnson. Edwards.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Alfred. Jeffries. Elsie. Johnson. Emmer. Johnson. Escobar. Jeffries. Espaillat. Jeffries. Estes.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Evans of Colorado.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Evans of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. East Valley.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Fallon.
Fourth District of Texas, Coach Crowley for Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Fedorchak.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Feenstra.
Johnson.
Johnson. Fields. Jeffries. Figures. Jeffries. Fenstad. Johnson. Fishbach. Johnson. Fitzgerald.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Fitzpatrick.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Flashman.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Fletcher. Jeffries. Flood.
Johnson.
Johnson. Fung.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Foster. Jeffries. Fushi. Jeffries. Fox. Johnson. Lois Frankel. Jeffries. Scott Franklin. Johnson. Friedman. Jeffries. Frost. Jeffries. Fry. Johnson. Fulcher. Johnson. Garamendi. Jeffries. Garbarino. Johnson. Garcia of California. Jeffries. Garcia of Illinois. Garcia of Texas. Jeffries. Gill of Texas. Johnson. Gillen. Jeffries. Jimenez. Johnson. Golden of Maine. Jeffries. Goldman of New York. Jeffries. Goldman of Texas. Johnson. Gomez. Jeffries. Tony Gonzalez. Johnson. Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries. Gooden. Johnson. Goodlander. Jeffries. Gosar. Gosar. Gottheimer. Jeffries. Graves. Johnson. Gray. Jeffries. Green of Tennessee. Johnson. Green of Texas.
For the third candidate of liberty and justice for all, the hope and dream of the enslaved.
The gentleman may respond by survey.
Reign of Texas. Jeffries. Green of Georgia. Johnson. Griffith. Johnson. Grijalva. Jeffries. Grothman. Johnson. Guest. Johnson. Guthrie. Johnson. Hageman. Mike Johnson. Holiday of Arizona. Johnson. Hearn of California. Jeffries. Paradopoulos. Johnson. Harrigan. Johnson. Harris of Maryland. Harris of Maryland. Harris of North Carolina. Johnson. Harshbarger. Johnson. Keys. Jeffries. Hearn of Oklahoma. Johnson. Higgins of Louisiana. Johnson. Hill of Arkansas. Johnson. Himes. Jeffries. Henson.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Horsford. Jeffries. Houchin. Johnson. Houlihan. Jeffries. Poyer. Jeffries. Hoyle of Oregon. Jeffries. Hudson. Johnson. Huffman. Jeffries. Huizenga. Johnson. Hunt. Johnson. Hurd of Colorado. Johnson. Isa. Johnson. Ivy. Jeffries. Jack. Johnson. Jackson of Illinois. Jeffries. Jackson of Texas. Johnson. Jacobs. Jeffries. James.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Jayapal. Jeffries. 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 Johnson of Georgia. Jeffries. Johnson of Louisiana. Johnson. Johnson of South Dakota. Johnson. Johnson of Texas. Jeffries. Jordan. Johnson. Joyce of Ohio. Johnson. Joyce of Pennsylvania.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Kim Lagardelle. Jeffries. Captor. Jeffries. Kane. Johnson. Keating. Jeffries. Kelly of Illinois. Jeffries. Kelly of Mississippi. Johnson. Kelly of Pennsylvania. Johnson. Kennedy of New York. Jeffries. Kennedy of Utah. Johnson. Conan. Jeffries. Kiggins of Virginia. Johnson. Kylie of California. Johnson. Kim. Johnson. Not. Johnson. Krishnamurthy. Jeffries. Custom. Johnson. LaHood. Johnson. LaLota. Johnson. LaMalfa. Johnson. Lanceman. Jeffries. Langworthy. Johnson. Larson of Washington. Jeffries. Larson of Connecticut. Jeffries. Latimer. Jeffries. Latta. Johnson. Lawler.
The Honorable Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Lee of Florida. Johnson. Lee of Nevada. Jeffries. Lee of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. Ledger Fernandez. Jeffries. Letlow. Johnson. Levin. Jeffries. Ricardo. Jeffries. Lou. Jeffries. Lofgren. Jeffries. Loudermilk. Johnson. Lucas. Johnson. Luna. Johnson. Latrell. Johnson. Lynch. Jeffries. Mace. Johnson. McKenzie. Johnson. Magaziner. Jeffries. Maliotakis. Johnson. Malloy. Johnson. Mann.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Mannion.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Massey.
Tom Emmer.
Emmer. Mast.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Matsui. Jeffries. McBath. Jeffries. McBride. Jeffries. McCall. Johnson. McLean. Johnson. McLean Delaney. Jeffries. McClellan. Jeffries. McClintock. Johnson. McCullum. Jeffries. McCormick. Johnson. McDonald Rivet. Jeffries. McDowell.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. McGarvey. Jeffries. McGovern. Jeffries. McGuire.
President Trump won in the electoral vote.
Johnson. McIver. Jeffries. Meeks. Jeffries. Menendez. Jeffries. Mang. Jeffries. Messmer. Johnson. Muser. Johnson. Mfume. Jeffries. Miller of Illinois. Johnson. Miller of Ohio. Johnson. Miller of West Virginia. Johnson. Miller Meeks.
The Honorable Representative and Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Mills. Johnson. Min. Jeffries. Molinar. Johnson. Moore of Alabama. Johnson. Moore of North Carolina. Johnson. Moore of Utah. Johnson. Moore of Wisconsin. Jeffries. Moore of West Virginia. Johnson. Moran. Johnson. Morelli. Jeffries. Morrison. Jeffries. Moskowitz. Moskowitz. Jeffries. Moulton. Jeffries. Mervan. Jeffries. Mullen. Jeffries. Murphy. Johnson. Nadler. Jeffries. Neal. Jeffries. Nagoose. Jeffries. Nails. Johnson. Newhouse.
Mr. Johnson.
Johnson. Norcross. Jeffries. Norman. Jordan. None of Iowa.
The Honorable Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Ogonoti.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Ocasio-Cortez. Jeffries. Ogles.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Olszewski. Jeffries. Omar. Jeffries. Onder.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Owens. Johnson. Pallone. Jeffries. Palmer. Palmer. Johnson. Panetta. Jeffries. Pappas. Jeffries. Pelosi. Jeffries. Perez. Jeffries. Perry. Johnson. Peters. Jeffries. Pedersen. Jeffries. Pfluger. Johnson. Pingree. Jeffries. Pocan. Jeffries. Poe. Jeffries. Presley. Presley. Jeffries. Quigley. Jeffries. Ramirez. Jeffries. Randall. Jeffries. Raskin. Jeffries. Reschenthaler. Johnson. Riley of New York. Jeffries. Rivas. Jeffries. Rogers of Alabama.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Rogers of Kentucky. Johnson. Rose. Johnson. Ross. Jeffries. Rouser. Johnson. Roy. Roy. Ruiz. Jeffries. Ruley. Johnson. Rutherford. Johnson. Ryan Jeffries. Salazar. Johnson. Salinas. Jeffries. Sanchez. Sanchez. Jeffries. Scalise. Johnson. Scanlon. Jeffries. Schakowsky. Jeffries. Schmidt. Johnson. Schneider. Jeffries. Skolton. Jeffries. Schreier. Jeffries. Schweikert. Johnson. Austin Scott. Johnson. David Scott. Jeffries. Scott of Virginia. Jeffries. Self. Donalds. Sessions. Johnson. Sewell. Jeffries. Sherman. Jeffries. Sherrill. Jeffries. Shreve. Johnson. Simon. Simon. Jeffries. Simpson. Simpson. Johnson. Smith of Missouri. Johnson. Smith of Nebraska. Johnson. Smith of New Jersey. Johnson. Smith of Washington. Jeffries. Smucker. Johnson. Sorensen. Jeffries. Soto. Jeffries. Sparks. Sparks. Johnson. Stansbury. Jeffries. Stanton. Jeffries. Stauber. Johnson. Stefanik. Johnson. Style. Johnson. Stubbe. Johnson. Stevens. Jeffries. Strickland. Jeffries. Strong. Johnson. Stutzman. Johnson. Subramaniam. Jeffries. Suazi. Jeffries. Swalwell. Jeffries. Sykes. Jeffries. Takano. Jeffries. Taylor. Johnson. Tenney. Johnson. Tanadar. Jeffries. Thompson of California. Jeffries. Thompson of Mississippi. Jeffries. Thompson of Pennsylvania. Johnson. Tiffany. Johnson. Timmons. Johnson. Titus. Jeffries. Talib. Jeffries. Takuda. Jeffries. Taco. Jeffries. Torres of California. Jeffries. Torres of New York. Jeffries. Trahan. Jeffries. Tran. Jeffries. Turner of Ohio. Johnson. Turner of Texas. Jeffries. Underwood. Jeffries. Valadeo. Johnson. Van Drew. Johnson. Van Dyne. Johnson. Van Orden. Johnson. Vargas. Jeffries. Vasquez. Jeffries. VC. Jeffries. Velasquez. Jeffries. Vindman. Jeffries. Wagner. Johnson. Wahlberg. Johnson. Waltz. Wasserman Schultz. Jeffries. Waters. Jeffries. Watson Coleman. Jeffries. Weber of Texas.
James Michael Johnson, Louisiana's favorite son.
Johnson. Webster of Florida. Johnson. Westerman. Johnson. Whitesides. Jeffries. Weed.
Mike Johnson.
Johnson. Williams of Georgia. Jeffries. Williams of Texas. Johnson. Wilson of Florida. Jeffries. Wilson of South Carolina. Johnson. Whitman. Johnson. Womack. Johnson. Yackham. Johnson. Zinke. Johnson.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from the Virgin Islands seek recognition?
Speaker, I have a parliamentary inquiry. I note that the names of the representatives from the Americas, Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia were not called, representing collectively 4 million Americans. Mr. Speaker, collectively the largest per capita of veterans in this country.
Does the gentlelady have a parliamentary
I asked
inquiry?
why they were not called. Have some respect. It's not going to take.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I asked why they were not called from the parliamentarian, please.
Delegates-elect and the resident commissioner-elect are not qualified to vote. Representatives-elect are the only individuals qualified to vote in the election of a speaker. As provided in Section 36 of the House Rules and Manual, the speaker is elected by a majority of the members-elect voting by surname.
Body and this nation has a territories and a colonies problem. What was supposed to be temporary has now effectively become permanent. We must do something about this problem so that these 4 million.
Thank you. Y'all Democrats stand up for the Jesus Christ, do something.
But I have a voice. And
The reading clerk will now call the names of the representatives-elect who did not answer the first call of the roll.
Biggs of Arizona. Johnson.
Yes, that was just a protest vote when they stayed silent.
Carson. Jeffries. Cloud. Johnson. Clyde. Clyde. Gosar. Gosar. Harris of Maryland. Johnson. Roy. Johnson. Waltz. Johnson.
If there are any representatives-elect who did not answer the call of the roll, they may come to the well and vote at this time.
Just stand right there.
Just say Clyde.
Just say Clyde.
Just
Clyde. Clyde. Gosar. Johnson. Clyde. Johnson.
This is live coverage on C-SPAN of the opening of the 119th Congress. If you're watching along with us, you can see there that Representative Johnson does not have the votes to be Speaker yet on this first round of votes. The tally, 216 for Johnson, 215 for Jeffries, 3 for others. That adds up to 434. Matthew Green is a professor of politics at Catholic University. He is with us, and I'd love to show those 4 pages of math that you have been doing throughout this vote count. What happened?
Well, we knew that there were some Republicans who were unhappy with Johnson and talked about, if not voting against him, voting present or not voting. We knew Tom Massey of Kentucky definitely was not going to vote for Johnson. But we had more certainly than I had anticipated. And although many of them ultimately in the second round, when their names were called, decided to vote for Johnson, there were 3 Republicans who voted for other named candidates. And so as a result, Johnson did not have the 218 that he needed to get elected this round of Speaker voting.
Joining us from Capitol Hill is Michael Schnell of the Hill publication. Ms. Schnell, what's going on up there?
Yeah, it's we're still all digesting the vote tally here, but as the clerk officiates the votes and goes through the roll to make sure they have it right, it appears that Mike Johnson has fallen short of winning the Speaker's gavel on this first ballot. As was mentioned, 3 lawmakers voted for somebody other than Johnson on the floor, 3 Republicans. Ralph Norman voted for Jim Jordan, Keith Self for Byron Donalds, and Thomas Massey for Tom Emmer. And because of that outcome, that leaves Johnson with just support from just 216 Republicans. All 215 Democrats supported Hakeem Jeffries. And that 216 number is problematic for Mike Johnson because it's short of the 218 that he needed to clinch the gavel. So this is not official yet. The clerk is going through it, but according to my tally, it looks like Johnson is going to fall short of the gavel on this first ballot.
And that's the same tally we have here on the set. Matthew Green, Catholic University politics professor, is with us as well. Could Ralph Norman change his vote from Jim Jordan? And could Congressman-elect Self change his vote from Donald?
I mean, theoretically, they can all change their vote. The 3 of them can change their vote if they want to. It's possible that the lawmakers who voted for Johnson could change their vote on the second ballot. Anything is possible here, but it's definitely going to require a whole host of conversations, perhaps some negotiations, to get Johnson the amount of support that he needs to clinch the gavel.
When do you expect that, if it takes place, a second round of voting?
Yeah, it's all a very tenuous situation right now, moving target, moving playing field. The first order of business will be the clerk officiating the results, and then we'll go from there to see if Mike Johnson decides to huddle with his conference, huddle with those lawmakers, or get back into another round of voting.
Michael Schnell, have you been able to be on the floor at all?
I was just in the House chamber, just ran down. I was up there for the vote, yes.
Have you had a chance to talk to some of the dissenting Republicans?
Not yet. Folks have not left the floor yet. Everyone is waiting to see the final tally and then see what Johnson decides to go from there.
Michael Schnell of the Hill, thank you for a few minutes and the update. We will be back in touch with you this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Well, Matt Green of Catholic University, could those 2 members, we don't expect Tom Massey to change his vote, but could Ralph Norman and Congressman-elect Self change their votes and to Mike Johnson?
Well, that's why it's great that C-SPAN's got these cameras so we can watch Speaker Johnson and his allies trying to have these huddles that you just heard about, these negotiations. And we can see him now sort of walking up the aisle here of the House chamber. I'm sure he's having these conversations, his allies are, whether they can be moved now or not. It may very well be that they're not going to change their vote. For those votes from the Speaker.
So he just left the floor. Speaker Johnson just left the floor. By the way, who is controlling the proceedings today? Because there is no Speaker-elect.
Right. So it's the clerk.
There is no Congress right now.
Well, the Congress has started, but the clerk, the acting clerk, the person who opened the proceedings today, is technically the person who is running the House until a speaker is chosen.
Because there are no members sworn in at this point.
Right. They're members elect at this point. They haven't been sworn in, but more importantly, we don't have a speaker. And so until that happens, the highest ranking officer of the House, who is the clerk, is in charge.
Mike Johnson
now,
isn't
you were
smart
doing a
enough
lot of math. Do you
to
mind
have
holding
had
up those
a
sheets? I just
speaker
want
pro
people to
tem.
see what was going on during
Sure.
the vote count. Because
Like McCarthy
we had
did.
lots of, here, why don't you give them to me?
Already
And I'm going
decided
to
on
just show
before
these
all of this
underneath my
happened.
camera here, just to
guess he
give you a
thought
sense
God
of
would
what kind
save
of
him
math
and he
was
didn't have to
going
do any
on
work himself.
while this was happening. And you can see here all sorts of math as more members changed or didn't change or didn't vote, et cetera, et cetera. 6 people held out, or 6 Republicans held out, or 7, and all ended up voting for Mike Johnson. What's the strategy?
Right. So 7 just did not respond when their name was called. They chose not to vote. And there were, a couple possibilities here. One, as this was happening, was that they just didn't want to vote for Johnson, but didn't want to vote for anybody else. And they didn't care if that meant that Johnson would get to be speaker or not. The other possibility was that they were doing it to make a point, to say that you need our votes to get elected speaker. We will eventually vote for you, but by doing this, we're making you sweat a little bit and show that we matter and you need to listen to us as this 119th Congress proceeds. As it turned out, they all did end up voting for Johnson. But it wasn't enough because you had these 3 who voted for other candidates and did not
Massey,
change their votes.
Norman, and Self.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. And at this point, what do you
Hey,
expect
if you
to
guys
happen?
can hear me talking, let me know.
Well, this is where the process of negotiation comes in, just as we saw 2 years ago when Kevin McCarthy was unable to get an absolute majority when he was running for speaker in January of 2023. The question is whether those negotiations, as we heard earlier, those discussions are happening now, or whether or not, or if they're going to happen at a later point. And it kind of depends on the politics of the moment, what these members, what they want, why they voted the way they did, whether they're open to negotiation, and if so, what it is they want in exchange for those votes.
Matthew Green, often people are promised the first round. I will support you on the first round. Does that mean that some of the questionable votes, people who were maybe not in total support of Mike Johnson to be speaker, could change their vote on the second round and further muddle this process?
That is certainly possible. Johnson and his team hopefully were doing the things that a strong leader does when they have a good whip operation, which is they look and see what kind of commitment they're getting. And if it's someone saying, I will vote for you, period, that means something else than I'll vote for you the first time.
Everybody's
and
off to a coffee
if there
break.
are folks who said, I'll vote for you the first time, they need to also be talking to them, as well as the folks, the 3 who wouldn't vote for Johnson in the first ballot.
I'm not
It's
on my regular
ironic, maybe,
computer.
that the 3
So-
other votes, Tom Emmer, Jim Jordan, and Byron Donalds, all supported.
I don't have it on my regular computer, guys, so I can't do like a normal live where you see me, because I wanted to be able to have this running no matter what I was doing or other work. So I can talk, but you can't see me. I apologize.
Thing. But whoever they choose in some ways is irrelevant, because the point is they didn't choose not to vote or vote present. They chose to vote for another candidate, which changed the math. And in this case, made it so Johnson, as of right now, does not have the votes to be speaker.
When Pete Aguilar nominated Hakeem Jeffries, he said, from the party that governs.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of laughed. What was that?
Well, one way of thinking about the way that any legislative body works, including the House, is what is the majority? And you can look at the majority in terms of just party affiliation and say, in this case, well, Republicans have more seats, so they're the majority. But there's other kinds of majorities as well. So one kind of majority is a procedural majority, which is, do you have the ability to control the agenda, to decide what comes to the floor? Another is a policy agenda. Do you have a majority to pass the things that you want? And I think what he was referring to was what we saw quite a bit in the previous Congress, which is even though Republicans had a numerical majority, they had more Republicans than Democrats who were in the House, there weren't enough willing to vote with the party on some key issues involving the agenda or involving legislation, and they would often have to turn to Democrats to get the votes they needed. So I think what he's saying there is, look, you may have more people, there are more people on your side than our side, but you have more people willing to defect. And so you're going to have to come to us when it comes to things that really, really matter.
All right. We were just seeing Steve Scalise, the majority leader, and Tom Emmer is the majority whip, correct? The Republican whip. The whip has confirmed that there will be another vote. So, and Speaker Johnson has left the floor. And let's watch the floor for a few seconds and let's see what's going on. We are back live at the House of Representatives, first day of the 119th, the election of the Speaker. Round one voting is nearly complete, or we're waiting for it to be gavelled out. Tom Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Professor Matthew Greene is here on the set with us. Professor Greene, what do you see in that picture?
That's a great shot of two members of the House Republican Conference who have a tradition of causing trouble and pushing back against party leaders from time to time. In this case, one of them did vote for Mike Johnson for Speaker, but the other did not.
And is Tom Massey, is there any lobbying that can be done, in your view, to Tom Massey to get him?
This is something that's going on the floor, and I can't speak for Massey, but I will say he has a tradition of being a sort of a lone gun, if you will, and doing his own thing. And he has said early and often he would not vote for Johnson.
She's getting the call
which,
from Elon,
certainly
guys.
suggests that he is not open to persuasion. But, who knows?
The fact that this...
She's getting the call from Elon to to see what to do next, so that she can maybe introduce him into the picture. I vote for Elon.
2 consecutive Congresses where on the opening day or the first opportunity to vote for Speaker, no one wins the.
And you're 100% right, Emily McDonald. 100%.
The nature of congressional politics these days, that we have strong partisanship, right, which we always have for the Speaker races, but certainly people are not going to defect very often on big votes. But you also have division. You have division, especially within the Republican Party. And in fact, really since 2011, with one exception, we have had every vote for Speaker has had at least one defector from one or both of the parties. The only exception to that was the election for Johnson in the fall of 2023. So in some ways, we're returning to form. But the fact that they couldn't even reach a majority, the majority party's candidate couldn't reach a majority on the first ballot on the first day of the opening house.
Hey, Alan, you missed all the fun, man.
Remarkable.
If you were a Democrat.
No worries. Looks like they're going to do it all over again anyway.
Well, Democrats would obviously prefer to be in the majority than the minority. But given that, I think they are thinking this is, again, just as Congressman Aguilar said, a sign that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for them to have influence because the majority party is going to have trouble governing.
Let's return to the House floor.
All right, while we're watching everybody talk about who knows what, I have some announcements. We have some videos coming out about the terror attacks that's been going on. I have not been able to record it. I had to get this underway first, but we've got that coming out. If you guys want to know what's going on with that, as well as get the context that the rest of the news isn't telling you, you already know, we got you. I'm not sure if that's going to come out this evening. I want it to come out this evening, but if not, you can be sure that by the morning time it will be up. But my goal is to have it out, before like midnight. So get ready for that one, guys. It's going to be a doozy. Going to be a doozy. Thank you for you guys' support, Alan. Thank you.
curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, bleach blonde, bad built butch body,
what now?
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, baby girl, bleach blonde, bad built butch body,
what now?
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you? Are your feelings hurt? Her words down. Oh, girl, baby girl, don't even play. Oh, really? Don't even play, baby girl. We are gonna move and we're gonna take your words down.
I second that motion.
That Miss Green agrees to strike her words.
I'm not apologizing.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
What now?
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, baby girl. Bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
What now?
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, baby girl. Bad built, bad built body. Bad butch body. Bleach blonde, bad butch body. Bad bleach blonde, bad butch body. No, because this is what y'all do. So I'm trying to get
Miss Crockett, you're not recognized. Miss Crockett.
There's no such thing as small talk, Emily. Every single thing right now is about exchanges. What someone can do for me, what I can do for you. There is no small talk. We're laughing at somebody else.
Now listen, if you have not subscribed to YouTube channel, do it right now. Do it today. And all you have to do is click the big red subscribe button on the YouTube channel.
Whoa! Let's go.
It's the best time in sport with
Triple
My Office
checking
on
the
the tab
numbers.
app. My Office gives you
All right.
personalized daily offers
I
on your
guess
favorites.
I'll go back to it. There's nothing to
15
see
rounds
here, but
and a couple of days. Now, January 6th is the counting of the accreditation of the electoral votes in Congress. Is there any chance that that could push if there is no speaker elected?
Well, they have to do that. They have to do the count on that day. They're required to do
that is,
so. That's
January
the day.
6th is the day
Mm-hmm.
that
They're
it has to
required
happen.
constitutionally to do it then. So on the one hand, that puts that really endangers. That puts a lot of pressure on the speaker elect, hopefully for Johnson to be speaker, because
hey, while they're sitting there watching people talk about how to gain more power, I also have more news. Thanks to Laura, the illuminated and illustrious Laura Malcolm, we even have new stickers, new sticker art. I'm gonna be putting it in there, hopefully, like while this is going on, because she got some bangers, man. You guys are gonna want to join just for the stickers and the emojis. Absolutely awesome work. So let me see. I'll try to show them soon, or if I can. But I'm going to be putting them in there for everybody who wants to join or who has already joined. If you're a member, you're going to love this stuff. Brand new emojis, I believe in sticker art. So really cool stuff.
Need to regroup before starting a new ballot. There is just one option on the table: adjourn the House.
oh, I see. Well, I want to go back to
There are
what
no
happened.
rules in place.
Right. I don't want to go back to what happened in 2023, which was the exact same situation, is that there were no rules in the House because the Speaker had not yet been chosen. But regardless of whether you adjourn or go into recess, the point is there would be a break. You can take a break. It's a practical matter. That might be what the Republicans need, is just a break so they can start negotiating and try to get some of those Republicans to vote for Johnson.
All right. That's an update from the House floor. Want to remind you that if this drama is not enough for you and you want to watch the Senate being sworn in, that's procedure is going on C-SPAN 2 in the Senate. There are 12 new senators who will be in the Senate, and a new Majority Leader, John Thune. But we're sticking with the House here on C-SPAN. We'll be back shortly.
Here I am in Tokyo. Now, this is the home of the at-home trader.
See all that wheeling and dealing going on? Everybody running around.
Big head, bitch, blonde, bad built, butch body, hoe, looking wild, girl, you know it's kinda shy. Talking all that mess, acting like you somebody, but your style's off, yeah, it's feeling pretty gutty. You bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, shots in the house, oversight. The babe's getting wild, personnel, the babe's give it all we got. Let me break it down, bring the facts to the scene. In the house with the light, yeah, it's getting pretty lean. Jasmine Crockett got a question, time to make it clean. Talking bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, ain't it obscene? She said, if we're talking trash, is it personality? Trying to figure out where we draw the line of legality. House committee vibes, got us questioning morality. First politics, all truth mixed with some reality. Bleach blonde, backed up, butch body, shots in the house, oversight is getting pretty high. Debate's getting wild, personalities on the spot. Let's keep it real, yeah, let's give it all we got. Marjorie Taylor Greene in the spotlight, it's a scene. But the focus on the looks, that's just being mean. Can we talk about the issues, keep the record clean? Instead of roasting bodies like it's some kind of meme. You can't bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, hoe, looking wild, girl, you know it's kinda shy. Talking all that mess, acting like you somebody, but your style's off, yeah, it's feeling pretty gutty. You bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, shots in the house, oversight. The babe's getting wild, personnel, the babe's give it all, just give it all we got. Just give it all we got. Bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, shots in the house, oversight is getting pretty high. The babe's getting wild, personalities on the smile. Let's keep it real, yeah, let's give it all we got. Let's give it all we got. Bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, butch body.
A what now? Sway. A what now?
Sway, the weed makes God.
Bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, butch body.
A what now?
Bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, butch body. I'm just curious. Bad built, bad built.
All right, guys, check back in. I don't think anything important is happening yet, but I'll keep us updated. When you start taking pictures of the cameras, it pretty much lets you know there's nothing going on. You're videoing the videographer at this point. I think we're okay with listening to some more Bleach Blonde, Bad Built music. What do you guys say?
Bad built, bad built, bad built, bad built, butch body.
A what now?
Bad built, bad built, bad built, bad built, bad built, bad built, butch body, butch body. Bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, butch body.
A what now?
Bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, butch body.
To get clarification, if I come and talk shit about her, y'all gonna have a problem. Calm down. Don't tell me to calm down.
Bad built, bad built, bad built, bad built, bad bad built bush body.
What now?
Bad built, bad built, bad built, bad built, bad.
Wait, the weed makes God.
She's a bleach blonde, bad built bush body. She's a bleach blonde, bad built bush body. She's a bleach blonde, bad built bush body. And she better not talk about nobody. Marjorie Taylor Greene is built like a shake machine. Nick Nolte in the face, cereal box in the waist. She better learn her place, cause she's about to catch a case. Talk about a black woman's lash, she'll definitely whoop your ass. She better get her face right, cause she looks like a pack of Bud Light. Oh, yeah. Bad built bush body. She's a bleach blonde, bad built bush body. She's a bleach blonde, bad built bush body. And she better not talk about nobody.
Miss Crockett.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body,
What now?
bleach blonde, bad built butch body, somebody's baby girl, bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
Order.
Bleach blonde, bad built.
That is absolutely unacceptable.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, baby girl.
Think your fake eyelashes are.
Don't even play. Baby, baby, baby,
Miss Green agrees to strike her word.
baby, 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 baby. Don't even play. Baby, 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 baby.
Miss Green agrees to strike her word.
I'm not apologizing.
This is what y'all do.
Baby, bleach blonde, bad built butch body. How dare you? Bleach blonde, bad built. This is what y'all do.
Order.
Bleach blonde, bad built.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just going through the playlist. Oh. I got some new emojis coming up in a second.
If someone on this
I had to get rid of some to use some, unfortunately. So if you missed the other ones, you want to become a member soon.
What now?
DJ Soulchild.
Who knows when they'll go away? Alright, let's see. I think this is good. I'm about to make them live. I don't know what's going on now. I think I'm gonna end this song here. we're in the rave section of the playlist. Let's see what else we got.
So here I am in Tokyo. Now this is the home of the at-home.
She got a bleach blonde, bad bush body. She got a bleach.
There we go. Let's get back to the gospel. I think my son is watching. I have to make sure. Gotta make sure we're above board, people.
Representative Jackson's about that line. She about that, and she looks like she can really fight. An amazing politician, ain't got no competition. ain't worried about a bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body.
If you're listening to this, I need to know what you think.
She had a butch body. With lashes, they won't give you gashes. Black women with lashes, they won't give you gashes. Black women with lashes, they won't give you gashes. Don't come for us unless we sit for you. Bleach blonde, back built butch body. She got a bleach back built butch body. A bleach blonde, back built butch body. She got a bleach back built butch body. A bleach blonde, back built butch body. She got a bleach back built butch body. A bleach blonde, back built butch body. She got a bleach back built butch body. Oh, she got it, yeah, she got it. She got a bleach on your body. She got it, yeah, she got it. She got a bleach on her body. She got it, yeah, she got it. I got a bleach on her body.
Amen. Yes, Lord. Talk that true, girl. Yes, Lord. My wife is out there somewhere
bleach
going.
Blonde, bad,
yes.
Built, butch body. Yeah, bleach blonde, bad, built, butch body. Your best friend's a dick grabbing, trashy hood thotty.
Oh my God!
Bleach
Hey,
blonde,
I don't know if I can
bad,
put
built,
this. Hey,
body, butch face, two neck so buff.
No, I can't do that. It sounds like it's about to be some cussing going on. More than I can handle.
This is how to get shit fast.
If you want to drop
that, let's go back in and see what these guys are talking about. I'm sure it's nothing, but at least they're not focused on cameras anymore.
Well, there's a lot of things I say about them, but if I had to summarize it, I'd say that it explains why members would be willing to join forces and challenge their own party leaders. And it's a combination of factors. But the main thing is that even if they don't win votes, they gain other things, political wins, or even sometimes policy wins by doing that.
All right. So we're at 216, 215. As the math is now, Mike Johnson needs 218 to be elected. Tom Massey voted for Tom Emmer. Ralph Norman voted for Jim Jordan. Keith Self voted for Byron Donalds. We just saw Mike Johnson and Ralph Norman and Keith Self walk off the floor of the House just a few minutes ago. We've been playing with the math here. All right. What's the latest scenario that you came up with?
So remember that to be Speaker, you need more votes than anyone else, which is what Johnson has. But you also need an absolute majority of all the votes cast for a named individual. So at this point, because everyone has voted for a named individual, Johnson needs 218 votes. But if those three Republicans, one of them decides, yes, I'll vote for Johnson, but the other two just can't bring themselves to do it, but one of those other two instead doesn't vote or votes present, then the denominator changes and Johnson needs 217 votes, not 218. And so in that
one
case,
votes for
Johnson.
Mike
one
Johnson,
more votes for Johnson, so
one
he goes
votes
to
present.
217. One votes present, and the other, probably Tom Massey, votes for a third candidate. Because that third person didn't vote or voted present, now Johnson, by my math, needs 217, not 218, and he would be elected Speaker.
And the camera's been following Ralph Norman, Republican of South Carolina, around. He's the gentleman bent over having a conversation. So he is back on the floor. And there's Keith Self, the other of the three, one of the three who voted for somebody else. Keith Self voted for his colleague, Byron Donalds, to be Speaker. So there's Ralph and Mike Johnson. Heading to the floor, heading to the well. Okay, there's Mike Johnson. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and watch. right. We see Ralph Norman, Keith Self, who did not vote for Mike Johnson, 2 Republicans down in the well talking to the clerk. I'm not sure who was standing behind him, but Mike Johnson was down there with him just a minute ago. Mike Johnson was talking with Hakeem Jeffries. So let's see what happens. This is the case, according to Matthew Green, Catholic University politics professor, where one could vote present, one could vote for Mike Johnson, and it would be over. Correct, Professor Green?
That's the math I've done. That's according to my math. We'll see.
And there's Mike Johnson there on the floor. So a little bit of politicking is going on here. I think he's trying to shut this down on one vote because the first vote still has not been called.
Correct. That's right. So perhaps they are there trying to change their vote.
And we left Ralph Norman and Keith Self down in the well. Don't know if they're still talking to the clerk or not. I presume they are. Did not see Tom Massey as part of this conversation. As he has said, he is a hard no. There's Ralph Norman again, South Carolina. Keith Self, the gentleman.
The House will be in order.
Mr. Norman is reported as Jordan.
House will be in order.
Mr. Norman Johnson. Mr. Self is recorded as Donalds. Mr. Self, Johnson.
He know his knees hurt right now. The amount of carpet burn he had to go through to get those people, who knows what he just sold. His state is probably underwater and without FEMA. I don't know. His whole entire state is probably being dug into a hole right now. How much carpet burn this guy had to go through in order to get those people that fast, we will never know. We will never know. Maybe right now there's actually a doppelganger of him at Mar-a-Lago increasing the carpet burn on his knees. As we speak, in both the bungalow of Elon Musk and the bedroom of Vice President Trump himself. Whatever just had to be done right there. I'm turning it away from C-SPAN because they're not telling you this news. They're telling you something else. Whatever they're saying is false. What I'm saying is true. People, what you just saw, to get to that 218, whoever just got sold out, thrown under the bus, taken to the watershed or the woodshed, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. His entire state is could be on the chopping block. I don't know. His entire state could be on the chopping block. Your rights, voters' rights, are on the chopping block. Money for your schools are on the chopping block. Social Security is on the chopping block. Whatever he just did to dirty his knees will be obscene. It will be NC-18. It's not even on the X-rated list. You can't watch it on P-Hub. And I have to be careful with my words because my son is watching upstairs. You can't watch it on P-Hub, guys. This is that stuff you have to know where to buy it. It's how dirty what just happened was. And it's on film because it has to be blackmailed. There's What you just saw happen here today, people, they're not telling you on C-SPAN, was maybe the absolute filthiest, nastiest thing that anybody has ever seen in the sex work industry. Everything that matters is on the chopping block. Whatever comes out of this is not good. Whatever states just got thrown under the bus is not good. All right, let's hear what they got to say.
Speaker. Tim Burchett, Republican of Tennessee, we appreciate your spending a minute with us. The House is back in session.
Johnson of the state of Louisiana has received 218.
Louisiana, you are done for. Whatever. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Look at his face. Louisiana, you are in a hole. You're in a hole right now. It has been dug for you. Your mama and your cousin too. All of them are in the hole.
The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 215.
And New York, you know, where you've always been. Keep making money. Just be careful about the Tesla trucks you rent out.
And the Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota
stuff coming
has
out about
received
that, people.
1.
I'm not making a joke either, but nobody died in that one. So, you know, is it too soon? I'm sorry.
Therefore, the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 119th Congress.
Go ahead, Big Mike. Big Mike. Killer Mike. That's what we're going to call him. Killer Mike. And since Killer Mike has now gone Republican, another rapper gone Republican, it even makes more sense. I swore I wasn't going to talk today.
The clerk appoints the following committee to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McLean. The gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson. The gentleman from California, Mr. Liu. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore. The gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Dalbene. The gentlewoman from Indiana, Mrs. Houchin. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Morelli. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. Dingle. And the members of the Louisiana delegation, Mr. Higgins, Ms. Letlow, Mr. Carter, and
Tell
Mr.
my wife,
Fields.
if you're watching upstairs, you can
The
go ahead
committee
and
will
turn it
retire
off
from
up
the
there
chamber
because
to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair.
I'm not sure what I'm going to say next. Go ahead and watch Sonic. What is this? A procession? Lord, I swear to you, I've been watching this stuff all my life, and every single time I'm as confused. It's something new. Every time. If he needs protection, he should just put his son on his shoulders like Elon does. He's already in his comment section. let's have him ride on your shoulders.
And you're watching live coverage of the opening day of the 119th Congress. It's January 3rd, which is a constitutional date when Congress, the new Congress, has to elect a speaker and go into business. Mike Johnson has been elected speaker 218 to 215 to 1. He got the majority of 434 members. That is the full Congress right now. The full Congress is actually 435 members, but Matt Gaetz, who did get reelected from his district in Florida, chose not to be sworn in, so he is not in the Congress as of right now.
Hey guys,
coming up in just a minute, Mike Johnson will be escorted down to the dais, and he will be introduced by Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader who came in second place when it comes to being speaker, by only 3 votes.
Support
So
the channel.
then we will hear from Mike Johnson after he is sworn in as Speaker of the House by the clerk. Mike Johnson will make a speech. He will swear in all the members elect. There is technically no member of Congress right now until the Speaker gets sworn in, and he can swear in all 434 other members. 219 Republicans, 215 Democrats. That's what's going to be happening this afternoon. The drama or the process of electing a speaker has concluded on one vote. It did take about 2 hours. We started this process at about 12:45 Eastern Time, and it was 2:36 when they finally declared Mike Johnson to be the speaker, and that was on one vote. Matt Green is with Catholic University of Politics professor. Professor Green, what's your assessment of what's happened so far this afternoon?
Certainly it certainly hasn't been as wild and drawn out as the last effort to elect a speaker after a new Congress in 2023. But at the same time, what we're seeing is a consequence of a very, very narrow majority that Republicans have, and the difficulty that both parties, but especially House Republicans, have had in keeping unified. When you have a very tiny majority on a vote where you're not going to get any votes from the other party, you've got to have everybody voting together. And it only in this case takes a handful to say no, to prevent or at least delay the selection of a speaker from the majority party.
And if you are just joining us, the vote had stood at 216 to 215. 418 was needed.
And thank you for being a member.
Three members voted for other people. Tom Massey, who promised that he was not going to vote for Mike Johnson all along, so he was already taken out of the equation, but he voted for the majority whip, Tom Emmer. Then Ralph Norman, Republican of South Carolina, voted for Republican Jim Jordan.
We'll come right back to it. What I can do is actually just show you right on here how to join. For the first time, I can actually show somebody how to do it. You can, if you go to, or whatever you're watching right now, what you're looking at right now, underneath it, you'll be able to see, oh, I ain't going in there yet. I'm not going in that bag yet. Y'all not ready for that bag. Your videos, there we go. Apologize. Okay. Whatever you're watching, when this thing gets back, just a quick tutorial for Emily. She asked, how do we join? If you want to know how to do that, just watch this, and before you know it, you'll be back to Mike Johnson. This is just a quick tutorial on how to join for those who want to, for those who want to support, for those who want to help me be able to get all of the emojis out. Because I feel like Poor Comics is going to be disappointed if we can't keep the old emojis while adding the new ones. So we need more people to join so we have that ability. Let's see. All right, yeah, I have the slowest computer on Earth, at least the one that's doing all of this OBS stuff. As soon as it comes up, I'll show you. Jesus Christ. It should not be this. Nothing should ever be this slow. My goodness. Gosh. Okay, here we go. Take a look here. Right next to it, right next to our logo to the right, you should see a join button. If you're, whatever you're watching, if you're watching this on your computer or your phone should have it underneath the video. And if you're on a computer, it should be right next to our logo underneath the video that you're watching, a button that says join. And it should be right next to the subscribe button, I believe. Let me know if I'm wrong, Laura, because of course this thing is acting absolutely stupid because I wanted to show, only because I want to show somebody something, it's decided to act up. Everything was perfect until then.
Housing costs are too high. Grocery costs are too high. Child care costs are too high. Insurance costs are too high. Utility costs are too high. America is too expensive. There are far too many people in this great country who for decades have been struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. That is not acceptable in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We need to build an affordable economy for hard-working American taxpayers, and we need to build it now. It's time for us to come together and finally lower the high cost of living in the United States of America once and for all. And we will work with anyone of any party to get that done. We will work with anyone to secure our borders, and we will work with anyone to fix our broken immigration system in a comprehensive and bipartisan manner. At the same period of time, we will push back against far-right extremism whenever necessary. So let me be clear. Social Security and Medicare are not entitlement programs. They are earned benefits. Hard-working American taxpayers pay in to Social Security and Medicare every day, every week, every month, every year throughout their entire adult life. They've earned those benefits, worked hard for those benefits, and deserve those benefits. So as Democrats, our promise to the American people is that we will fight hard to make sure that no one in this town takes away Social Security or Medicare from the American people. Not now, not ever. No means never. Our position is that it is not acceptable to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut veterans' benefits, or cut nutritional assistance from children and families in order to pay for massive tax breaks for billionaires and wealthy corporations. House Democrats will fight hard to protect working class Americans and the things that matter to them, not the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Keep your hands off Social Security and Medicare. Over the last 4 years, it's been a great honor for us to work alongside President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, whose administration rescued the economy from a once-in-a-century pandemic, delivered historic infrastructure investments, created more than 15 million good-paying jobs, enacted common-sense gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years, provided life-sustaining health insurance to veterans suffering from toxic exposure, championed the largest investment in combating the climate crisis in the history of the world, which we will defend, and brought down the high price of life-saving prescription drugs for millions of Americans. Thank you, President Biden and Vice President Harris, for your powerful, principled, and purposeful public service. Thank you. Two months ago, the American people elected Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States of America. Thank you for that very generous applause. It's okay. There are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. You see, one should love America. One should love America when you win and when you lose. That's the patriotic thing to do, and that's the America that House Democrats will fight hard to preserve, because we love this country. America.
That's it.
Is bigger.
That's how you show them how
than any one
stupid they look.
campaign, any one election, or any one individual. America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let us never forget that our country is free, not simply because we are strong. America is strong because we are free. That freedom is now under assault. There are some in this country who apparently believe that the freedom of economic opportunity that made them wealthy should not apply to everyone else. Our message to that crowd is simple. Democrats will never abandon the long walk toward freedom. We will fight hard to defend the freedom of opportunity that makes the American dream possible. We will fight hard for the freedom to vote and to fight for a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We will fight for the freedom to organize and join a union of your choice. We will fight to defend the free enterprise system, but work hard to make sure that it actually works for working class Americans. And we will always defend a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions. America promises one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the America House Democrats will fight hard to preserve. God bless you. God bless the House of Representatives. May God continue to bless the United States of America. It is now
do this until February 1st.
To present the gavel to the gentleman from the great state of Louisiana, the son of a firefighter, a God-fearing man, a husband, and a loving father of four, the 56th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson.
How honorable he is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Leader Jeffries, all of our treasured colleagues here in the House. I'm grateful for this nomination. I'm grateful for this election, for the confidence this chamber has placed in me. It is the great honor of my life to serve this body with all of you. Of course, these are difficult days in our home state of Louisiana, where I come from. We all know about the terrorist attack in New Orleans, and it's really shaken our state. People are reeling from that attack.
Yeah.
It took the lives of 14
right there.
innocent people
All right,
and
guys,
injured dozens more.
I'm not going to.
And I wanted to begin appropriately today. If we could, I'd ask you all to join me in a moment of silence for the victims of this horrific act.
Nobody cares. He's a special part of the video we got coming out about that horrific act, about the terrorism, and how he came out to stoke more fire and tell more lies. So as a responsible channel owner, I'm not going to put his lies out here. I'll wait to see what he says and interject context as it's necessary to do. But I'm not going to just let him tell the lies without context. So we'll record it and we'll have what he said in context, because he was the first person to lie about who perpetrated the terrorist act. He was the first person to stoke fears about the others and about immigrants when the terrorist act started, and has yet to admit his lies or retract his statements. He's the first person to genuflect toward Donald Trump when he lied on Truth Central. Truth Central. So no, sorry. This channel will not be just playing the lies without context. We'll tape it, we'll record it, and I'll make sure to put whatever this snake-tongued liar, snake oil salesman who just burnt his kneecaps getting the 218 votes that he needed, and who knows who he threw under the bus and what states and rights are underwater because of it. No, we're not gonna put what he has to say out there without context. We'll record it. We'll have it later. Thank all of you for being here. I really do appreciate it. Press like, press subscribe. Sorry for that little mishap where the feed went down, but you got some of the best parts of Hakeem Jeffries' talk. Thank you all. We'll have his statements up with context shortly. I'm not just going to let him lie on the channel. We don't do that. We aren't CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, so we're not just going to let him just... He started out with lies. I turned it off. We'll record it. And then have it up later with the context necessary. If we don't feel like putting actual devil horns on him while he's talking, I'll refrain from doing that. But we're not just going to allow him to spew lies. We'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good one.